Hey my friend, I'm Jonah, and welcome to Lion's Mane Media. So I know obvious clickbait in the title, but I do have a point to make in regards to it, and while it is my own opinion on it, I'm going to attempt to explain myself as best I can. Because true love having standards is one of those things that is both yes and no. Most of us have been told that true love is unconditional, and most of us tend to believe that is the definition of true love. It is love that no matter what we may do or what our faults to be, it will always be there for us. Yet there is an issue here in that some people have seen it almost as a license that there should always be affirmation for whatever it is they do. Think about this scenario, for example. There are two people in a relationship, and one person is always belittling the other person, always making demands of them, or always telling them whatever. And the thing is that whenever the other person would call them out on saying, "Why are you treating me like this?" they would respond with something like, "I guess you don't love me anymore." And that first person's love is only towards themselves. They might like the attention the other gives them, but the moment it comes when they might be the one in need of changing, then their conditions come into play. It's like they may have a list of standards that the other person may be supposed to be meeting, but it's like they don't want to meet the other person's standards, in a sense. And one of the issues is that we as a society often treat love as this feeling or emotion that it can fade, that it's like, oh, I'm not in love anymore, or I've fallen in love and now I've fallen out of love. And the thing with love is that it's so much more, because the love that actually has power is not just some chemical reaction in the brain. In fact, you don't even have to like someone to show love to them. Crazy, I know. But I think of the Torah, true love is sacrifice in a way. It's this action, it's a choice. In order for true love to happen, you have to actually be able to choose not to love in a sense. So it's kind of this thing. I mean, they talked about love being a verb, but while maybe cliche, it's active. You're actively choosing to show love. Again, love is often most real when it's hardest to do it, not when it's easiest. And the thing is that love's standards are that it wants the best for the other. Except that rather than asking you to meet those standards, it does its best to help you rise to the occasion. But I think in the fact that it's wanting the best for the others is where most of these misunderstandings about love comes in. Because we all have this idea of what would be best for us, and oftentimes we may even think about what would be best for other people. For example, a child would probably see no reason why they couldn't have sundaes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, they're delicious, they're sweet, they always taste good. Why not? But yet, again, it's up to a parent to basically say, wait, no, we need to have different stuff. We can't just have that. I mean, there's probably an argument to be made that if it was full of protein and didn't have all the sugar or high fructose corn syrup or whatever is in it, then they could probably did away with it. But then that's basically being an advocate or basically going into a really weird situation. But it's just kind of like there's probably a way to make it, but it's like most of the time there are other options that are just generally easier. But then we have these people who just want to be affirmed that they are right and faultless. And those people often tend to talk a lot about love, and they act like they're the most loving people ever, but what they really want is someone to just be clapping in their audience. They want to have someone almost like following them around, polishing their halo for them, rather than to see someone who would instruct them on their form or their attitude or how they present themselves. they tend to see any form of criticism as hate, when it may actually come out of love. I mean, how many of us, if we had advice in an area of expertise, would withhold it from someone we loved in order to see them fail? I mean, we'd probably say, hey, you might want to do this better, or so forth. And in fact, some people will even share that even though they have no idea what they're talking about. Which is, again, there's probably something on how to take criticism and when to ignore it. And I think a lot of times the people who probably most to benefit from criticism probably tend to ignore it, while the people who may not need it as much tend to receive it all. But it's just kind of one of those weird paradoxes, but that's getting off topic. But this thing about love is that it's also probably where the sacrifice comes in. Because often, in some cases, we may have to give up what we want for what those we love want. And I know there's I've read a lot about finances, business, and so forth, and it's like, kind of the right question to ask is, rather than saying, okay, we can choose this or this, it's like asking, okay, how can we afford to do both? Or how can we afford both things, and so forth. But the thing is, sometimes there is a choice to be made, and it's like saying, hey, I don't really want to do that event or go to that place, but I will do it because I love them. And I will also have a good attitude about it, because then it's kind of easy to div and not div, in that your people will basically go, but then they'll grumble about it and be very unhappy, when it's like, it's also like, I'll enjoy it because I'm there with them. Even if it's something I may not always like doing. And there are other cases where we may need to be willing to be the villain in their eyes by actually telling them no. And that's the thing, we don't really like to be the villain. We want to be the hero, we want to be the giver of treats and so forth. We want to be the friend and advocate. But sometimes there is a time to put our foot down and say, there is a line that will not be crossed. And it's kind of based in the perceptions of that would make us the villain in the case, or the antagonists of being in the way of whatever fun or whatever would happen. But it's like, we may see consequences down the road that another person might not see. And it may be because we've been down that way before. And so the thing is to be willing to basically be that villain, or to be the bad guy in addition by reinforcing someone else's decision rather than being the one who divs. And in yet another case, there may be some times where we actually have to let go of our preconceived notion of what is best. It's kind of like the opposite of the previous one, in that we sometimes have this idea of what might be best. Think of like parents who are like, okay, we're going to do everything we can to make sure our child becomes the best doctor or lawyer there is, and doing that from almost kindergarten, but then suddenly they find out the child has a gift in the arts, and it's like, okay, what do we do from there? Do we just keep pushing the child down the road to where we've planned them to go? Do we decide to balance both things of what we want, or do we basically decide to say, hey, this is their gifting, that's what they're good at, let's give them the best head start we can, because later down the line, if they will probably not give up, they may either let that dream die and be miserable, or they may rediscover it and start over again. But the thing is, we could potentially give them a head start now and support them fully and totally, and provide them with the people who are on that path too, and so forth, and walk down that path with them. So the thing is, there's a toss to love, but the thing is whether or not we think love is worth the toss. And if we do, then we will pay those kinds of prices. I know as a Christian, what kind of always inspires me about love is that it talks about how God is love, and I don't think it's kind of thought of enough, in that we have this concept of God outside of time and space, who knows whatever would happen, even knowing that it would toss him dying to basically say, to have real love. It didn't love, you could probably program a robot to say I love you, but it didn't love is when you can choose to not love. That's kind of the thing. It's like there has to be that choice that is made. There has to be another option. But once there is, and that person chooses, that is love. And maybe that's the basis of what I should have started with. But again, that is what I believe. And these are my thoughts on it. So feel free to share your thoughts or comments below. And if you like this video and would like to see more like it, please like and subscribe, because it does support the growth of this channel. And I'll talk to you later, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.